Well, I'm here as a result of imperialism. And so, you know, you spoke about slavery, and that's another form of slaving nations. Before, they used to ship us in ships. Now we come in yolas, kayaks, boats. Just recently, I'm Dominican, of Dominican, Afro-Caribbean. I'm from the Dominican Republic. And just recently, there was a kayak that was lost at sea. 52 people disappeared from the lives of their families, from the lives of their friends. Who knows what happened? And I know who to blame. I know exactly who to blame. I know to blame the Dominican government for kissing the ass of the United States of America.
That's right.
And all its presidents. The Dominican Republic has been invaded more than 5 times, and it continues to be invaded politically and economically. However, Dominicans are quick to say that the Americans are good, but the Haitians are the ones that we need to be scared of. Isn't that interesting? That the Haitians are the ones that we need to be scared of, because the Haitians invaded us once, or at least that's the history that we're taught in school. That they invaded us, and that they killed our kids, and that they killed our mothers, and that they killed our sisters. That's something that has enslaved my people for centuries. And enslaved us in a way that we cannot affirm our blackness, that we cannot affirm that black is powerful, that is good. I'm a Christian. Funny enough, I'm a Christian and a Marxist-Leninist. Those of you who find contradiction in that, we could talk afterwards. But I don't feel there is any contradiction when you do liberation work. As a Christian, coming primarily from a Catholic home, anything that was black was bad. So the church has a lot of fault in the way it shapes people's perception of the world, and the way that it shapes people's relations to the world. And so I could only speak from my experience as a Black Latina, as a Christian, but also I'd like to believe that I'm in the process of being a revolutionary, because that never ends. You always learn something. I was reading to prepare myself for this week's sermon. I don't know how many of you know that this week Lent began. And Lent is a space for reflection and for prayer. There are many ways to reflect and many ways to pray. And for me and my tradition of Christianity, our understanding is that the battle is not between those who believe in God and those who don't believe in God. The battle is between those who practice justice and those who don't practice justice. Because somewhere along the line, we'll meet with those who don't believe and still practice justice. And so I feel like the issue when it comes to the church and the issue of imperialism, capitalism, and slavery, and sexism, and all the other isms that hurt our people, the issue is that the church as an institution has kidnapped spirituality and has led us to believe that as a people, we could only gain spirituality if we go to church, or we go to temple, or if we go to the mosque. And the reality of the matter is that our spirituality is manifested through the actions that we make. So the things that we do and how much impact we bring into the world every day. In the process of preparing my sermon, I came across Roque Dalton. I don't know how many of you have heard of him, but Roque Dalton, somebody raised his hand. Are you Salvadorian? Roque Dalton is not only a poet, he was a revolutionary and quite a critic of the U.S. politics, foreign politics, and I like to say he's probably one of the best writers I've read in a long time. Although he passed a while back, but he wrote something around the time period in which we are in Christianity now. And I translated it, hopefully it does justice to it. But he says, baby Jesus was born armed, and the resurrection of Jesus was a convenient call to pick up crosses and hit the wealthy with the crosses, What is Christian culture without understanding and practicing a subversive and conspiring theology? It's shit. If a church isn't able to respond to the reality of the people, it's shit. Excuse my French. That is the pulse for the work that we should be doing as people who consider ourselves spiritual, as people who consider ourselves humane. And so when I was asked to speak today, I kept on wondering, you know, how am I going to tie all these things together? And I'll continue with my train of thought, the aspect of imperialism. Because the aspect of imperialism also comes from a superiority complex. It comes from white supremacy. It comes from the idea that the other part of America, which is Latin America, the Caribbean, right, is the backyard. And the empire, the United States, is the house. And you said it right. We live in colonies. We live in colonies because those third worlds that they've created are in the United States. And so not only do they have slaves outside, they have slaves here as well. And the jobs that we go and punch in and punch out of our field, those are plantations. And we need to start understanding that. And I feel like unless we're able to reclaim ourselves from the origin, from the very basic things, it's interesting because I work at a clinic, right? Something that health should be accessible to everyone, and it's not. And it's something very basic, very human. The terminology for people who walk in there to get services, do you know what it is? It's not patient. Do you know what it is? Anybody wants to take a guess? Clients. Clients. That sets the tone for the relationship of the person providing the service and the person gaining the service. And it goes very much back to what you were saying in terms of being able to deconstruct even the way in which we use language, the way that we relate to each other. I've had a lot of issues within my community as a Latina when I affirm myself as a Black Latina. No, niña, tú eres India, tú eres trigueña, everything but Black. In the Dominican Republic, their IDs, people have IDs to go vote. And interestingly enough, you have all sorts of races, right, that are placed there. You're white, but you are light trigueña. You are dark trigueña, which is kind of a light black, right, lighter shade of black. But no one is Black but the Haitian. The Haitian is Black. And in order for us to, and I'm speaking again as a Dominican, from my Afro-Caribbean experience, to deconstruct that, we need to deconstruct a lot of things. But revolution starts in the mind. And it starts with the way in which we see ourselves and the value that we give ourselves and the value that we give others. And it starts in the very core of what a revolutionary process would be, for me at least, which is the household. The way in which we teach our children. And I feel like it takes a lot. It takes counteracting the teachings of the church. It takes counteracting the teachings of the schools. It takes counteracting the idea of what policemen and policewomen are out there to do. Because one reality is that when you go out there and you're organizing and you're knocking on people's doors and you're talking about cops, people fear, one, and two, a lot of them feel like cops are really out there to protect them. And that's real. But it starts with the process of indoctrination. These are the people who hold the authority. And if you're not doing something right, but who determines what right is? Exactly. Who tells us, well, you standing in the corner because you don't have any recreational spaces, because as a young people, you're unemployed. I mean, a lot of people, young and old, are unemployed these days. That's bad. And anything happens in the community, I'm going to come in and pat you down because I have the right to do that. But you don't have the right to stand in the corner of your hood? Who determines that? And I feel like it's very important for us to be able to question, to keep a critical mind. My niece is 10 years old. And I remember that we were coming from 42nd Street. There's a high level of police presence. these days, overseers. And my niece was standing with me in the train, and there was a cop right in front of her, and he does what a lot of cops do, which is touch their guns when they are speaking. My niece is 10 years old, and she said it very loudly, so loudly that the person next to her was like, shh, cállate, you know? She said, Titi, why is he always grabbing his gun? Is he ready to shoot somebody? She said it quite loud, quite loud. The lady sitting next to me, another Dominican lady, said, why, you have to tell her to shut up, in Spanish. And I said, oh no, I'm not telling her to shut up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you why he has his gun out like that. And I feel like a lot of the times when people are caught up in those situations, what's the reaction? Shh. We need to have the instinct of the children. The children question everything. And so we need to motivate our children to question, even us. That's where it starts. And then when it starts there and the child starts questioning the teacher, I have a whole lot of stories about being sent to the principal's office. Because my whole thing was, America is not a fucking country. Excuse my French. It's not a country, it's a continent. And I'm American because I'm part of the American continent. And I got sent to the principal's office more than once by my German teacher, U.S. social story German teacher. We need to fomentar. We need to motivate our young people to ask questions. We do a lot of work with youth in the South Bronx through the Rebel Diaz Arts Collective. And one of the main things that we do is political education through hip hop. Understanding that hip hop came from a community that was oppressed, that continues to be oppressed, and that continues to be teach that we're worthless, that we are the Bronx Zoo. And I'm not talking about the actual Bronx Zoo, but that the Bronx is the zoo. And the Black and Latino people who live there are the animals. Still to this day, I don't know if any of you, probably you haven't, noticed that Fort Apache, that precinct, Fort Apache, continues to have in the cement, Fort Apache. And that's telling us something. That's telling us that we continue to be the Indians and they continue to be the cowboys. And they will continue to hunt us down. And until the community is able to see things like that, then that will continue to happen. But again, it starts with the small revolution. The revolution of our minds, the revolution in our family, the revolution in our communities, and ultimately, the overthrowing of this system. Because that is real. A lot of us fear the word socialism. We can't just oppose to things, we gotta propose something. And as we are opposing, we need to create alternatives. We need to create spaces. Through the work that we do in Washington Heights with the Urban Butterflies, which is a young women's project, which is really interesting. We have men allies, but the young women there between the ages of 13 and 30 are the ones that are assuming a position of leadership and doing community organizing and doing door knocking and taking the leap of faith, because it is a leap of faith, because you have to have faith to do work of struggle and solidarity. They create what Roque was talking about, the whole process of taking the crosses and hitting the wealthy with it. Just recently, we were looking for a space in the community, and we were told that we could have a space, and we did some research on who was the person providing the space. And it was Vantage Realty. I don't know if you know who Vantage is, but it's one of the biggest forces of gentrification in our community, and one of the biggest reasons for having overseers in Washington Heights. And we said no, publicly said no to the, and I feel like that lack of integrity a lot of times from people allows movement to get stuck. It's very easy for people to sell out. Very easy. And I feel like a lot of the times we also need to, as a movement, hold people accountable publicly hold people accountable, because that is also part of freedom. That's also part of freedom. And I feel that if we aren't able to hold each other accountable, then we will never be free. Because slavery is not something that's done isolated. It takes two to tango.
Sure.
And so a lot of the times we criticize, we don't create alternatives. A lot of the times other people are doing things that are damaging our process of moving forward, and we don't say anything. There are internal empires that we need to break as well. And we need to be cautious of them. Because if we're not cautious of them, then those spaces will be the victory of those who are our enemies. And so they're telling me I have 5 minutes. But if there's something you remember of everything I've said today, revolution starts in the mind. It follows in our immediate community, which is our family. And from there on, we can continue to birth many revolutions. But the revolutions that we should create are those small ones that will ultimately gain us those big gains. Let us not chase illusions of what revolutions are.